Her name was Serena, 36 years old and a senior executive at a listed company. The late autumn wind carried a thin chill, a breeze swept in, and sycamore leaves that had not yet finished falling drifted slowly to the ground. At 6 in the evening, Serena stepped through the revolving door of the business hotel in her stilettos, an unclasped leather portfolio still tucked under her arm. The day's negotiations had gone badly. As Vance's vice president of strategy, she juggled a crushing load, and since her husband's death a few years earlier, she felt her energy waning. Every evening she left the office exhausted. She had just crossed the intersection and the sidewalk was almost empty. Serena pulled her trench coat tighter and quickened her pace, but after only a few steps she heard low male laughter. "Hey, gorgeous, all alone?" 3 men emerged from the shadows, knees unsteady, reeking of alcohol. She halted, voice steady, "Step aside. I don't know you." The leader clicked his tongue. "Don't be so cold. Have one drink with us and we'll let you go." As he spoke, he reached for her wrist. Serena jerked back. "I'll call the police." He only smirked. "Police? Go ahead, try." In that instant, fear stabbed through her. By the time officers arrived, these men would be long gone. The leader was strong. He yanked her arm and leaned in, breath sour with liquor, his other hand groping toward her full breast. Serena shouted for help, but the street was deserted, not a single passerby appeared. In her despair, a silhouette flashed in from behind. "Back off." The voice was young, low, and razor-sharp. The next second, a tall, powerfully built figure snapped a kick into the leader's ribs. He moved like a pro, precise, forceful, every strike clean. He blocked a beer bottle from one thug, countered with an elbow that dropped the man. When the third lunged, he seized the wrist and executed a crisp shoulder throw. Within seconds, all 3 lay incapacitated. For a heartbeat, Serena stood frozen. Not because he had saved her, but because when he turned around she saw a face so familiar it made her soul shudder. Under the street lamp his brow ridge was sculpted, eyes slightly long and deep, bright with the earnest fire of youth. He looked exactly like her dead husband, Adrian. Serena's breath stopped, even her fingers went stiff. The young man didn't notice her expression, only asked with concern, "Are you okay?" The voice was the same. After a long moment she managed a hoarse reply. I'm fine. Thank you." He rubbed the back of his head, gave an embarrassed grin. "I was just passing by. No big deal." When he smiled, he looked even more like Adrian. The wind pressed his white training tee against his frame, outlining broad shoulders and a firm, tapered waist. A faint, clean scent of sweat clung to him, youthful, invigorating, not offensive in the least. Serena forced her gaze away, cheeks warming for no reason she could name. To show her gratitude, she invited him to a nearby noodle bar for a meal. They walked and talked. Serena asked quietly, "What's your name?" He smiled. "Leo, Leo as in Leo the Brave." She repeated the name silently, again and again. "You train in combat sports?" Leo nodded. "Started with Sonda as a kid, then switched to MMA. I'm a junior at the state university across the river." After that night, Serena told herself she would soon forget the young man named Leo. She had always been rational. It was nothing more than chance, not fate. Back at Vance, she threw herself into work, hoping busyness would bury every nagging worry. Some things, however, refuse to stay buried. The harder you push them down, the higher they float. One afternoon she was annotating a file when a shape on the page suddenly resembled the letters Leo. She stared blankly for 2 seconds, then forced herself to turn the next page. But her heartbeat still skipped half a beat. She realized she simply couldn't forget. That night Serena left work very late. When she stepped out of the office tower, the night was deep and the chill biting. Security nodded at her. "Vance, thanks for the hard work." She returned the nod lightly. Just then, a familiar boyish voice rose from the curb. "Vance." She jerked her head up. Leo stood beneath the yellow street lamp, gym bag slung across his back, one hand in his pocket, as if he'd been waiting a long while. This was no coincidence. He had come for her. Serena hesitated a fraction. "What are you doing here?" Leo smiled faintly, eyes locked on her. "Didn't you say next time you were free you'd treat me to dinner?" "I've been waiting." Serena went silent for several seconds, muttering inwardly, "Kid, you actually took an offhand comment seriously." At that moment an indescribable feeling welled up inside her. It had been far too long since a stranger had looked at her like that. She spoke softly, "Let's go." They walked side by side, the night was quiet. Leo stayed half a step behind her, not because he was slow but from an instinctive need to protect. He didn't ask about her job, her salary, her title, her network. He asked only one thing: "You look exhausted today." Serena blinked, then gave a slight nod. "Yeah, a little." "Then don't force it," Leo said. "When you have time, get out and unwind, like I do when I go for walks." Serena nodded and said nothing more. They picked a food truck lot and ate something simple. Serena had the sense the young man was purposely drawing closer. Yet she didn't mind. On the way back, Leo stopped. They faced each other in silence for a moment. Leo broke it gently. "Meeting like this is fate. If you ever feel stifled, call me, I'll take a walk with you." Serena lifted her gaze to the fresh-faced young man, hesitated, then finally murmured, "Thank you." After that, Leo initiated invitations. At first Serena declined. Since her husband's death, many men had asked her out, partly because her figure was alluring, partly because she was wealthy. Serena wasn't casual by nature, so she refused them all. But with Leo, 12 years her junior, she found she couldn't say no. One night Leo confessed, "I really like you." Serena's heart gave a tremor, then began to race. She couldn't speak, she didn't know whether to refuse or accept, they still knew too little about each other. She thought that would end the evening. But Leo simply smiled. The smile held no disappointment, only absolute confidence. "No rush," he said. "I'll wait." With that, he turned and left, stride clean and decisive, no hesitation. That night Serena sat on the edge of a hotel bed, lights off, back to the window. It had been ages since a man had made her heart race like this, she felt lost. After that night, Leo didn't appear as often as she'd expected. He didn't message every day or engineer chance meetings. He simply surfaced at exactly the right moment. Rainy days, in the company's underground garage, he'd be standing beside her car under an umbrella. Late at night when the office lights clicked off, he'd be sitting on the plaza steps outside. Never clingy, just a quiet presence guarding her back. A presence that breeds dependence. Serena stayed rational, she told herself to keep her distance. The winter wind turned colder, tension thickened the air of the top-floor boardroom. The group was preparing the next cross-border merger, and as VP Serena had to lead the talks. Standing at the conference table, she was calm, poised, razor-sharp. Only when the meeting ended and she closed the leather portfolio did a thin sheen of sweat appear at her temple. Today she noticed she looked especially tired, her mind repeatedly drifting. That afternoon, Grant, founder of the merger partner, arrived at Vance for negotiations. He was in his mid-30s, refined in manner, his conversation effortless. In the reception room the two of them mapped out the synergy timetable, the mood easy, stripped of boardroom tension. When the meeting wound down, Grant rose and invited her, "Serena, dinner tonight?" "Off duty, we should count as friends." The words came naturally, sincere, without the faintest press. Serena meant to decline, but no excuse surfaced. "All right," she answered. Then her phone rang, Leo calling. After she hung up, Serena gave a small, guilty smile. Sorry, Grant, I'm booked tonight. Grant looked startled. Booked? Serena nodded, cheeks flushing. My boyfriend. Color drained from Grant's face, he took his leave in haste. Outside the tower, the two of them walked side by side across the parking deck. Neither spoke. Only when they reached her car did Serena finally ask, "Why did you come?" Leo stopped in front of her, his gaze settling on her face with slow deliberation. Because I knew you wanted to refuse, but you wouldn't. The fingers clutching her key fob whitened. You don't get to decide for me. He didn't argue, only rested his hand gently over her clenched fist. I'm not deciding for you. I'm just in love with you. In that instant he looked nothing like a 23-year-old, the steadiness was almost unsettling. Serena stared back, feeling her heartbeat slip its leash. That night she drove him to her lakeside villa. A few days later they slipped downtown and signed a marriage license. After the wedding Serena seemed reborn, her skin luminous. Neighbors gossiped that Serena certainly knew how to live, snagging a man that young. Jealous bachelors muttered she was overcompensating. The couple ignored it all, still wrapped in each other. One of Serena's girlfriends sighed with envy, claiming Serena enjoyed 3 rounds of nightlife a day. Serena only smiled and said nothing. Then, one deep night, an emergency board meeting dragged on until 2 a.m. The boardroom lights were merciless. Serena stayed glacially calm, her voice steady. Yet when the directors finally filed out and she stepped into the empty executive lounge, her knees nearly buckled. She leaned against a cabinet, palm to her forehead, breathing hard. The old stomach cramps were back. Just then the door opened. Leo hadn't knocked. He didn't hesitate, as if certain she would be here. He crossed the room without a word and pressed a thermal mug into her hand. Serena looked down, warm ginger tea. A blissful smile curved her mouth. Later, drifting to sleep against his chest, she felt beneath his shoulder blade a thin, unmistakable old scar, razor-fine, knife-thin. When her fingertips brushed it, Leo's body snapped taut. Instinctively he seized her wrist, the reflex of someone long drilled in peril. Serena froze. Leo, were you hurt before? 2 seconds of silence. Brief, but definite. Then he released her hand and met her eyes. Serena, my past doesn't matter. The sentence felt like a drawn curtain over something too dark to name. She asked no more. Still, a quiet warning bell had sounded inside her. Next day, Serena slipped into Eastbrook to find him. In the training hall he was powering through reps, sweat channeling down the ridges of his back. He trained so intently that only after a long set did he spot his wife in the doorway. What are you doing here? I missed you. For a beat he simply stared. Then his hand cupped the back of her head and he bent to kiss her. Husband and wife, blissfully entwined, let 5 years drift by. When the Monday morning staff meeting adjourned, her executive assistant murmured while stacking the binders, "Vance, be careful lately." Serena lifted an eyebrow. Meaning? Maya hesitated. People from the chairman's floor are watching you. Serena didn't ask why, she already knew the answer. The cross-border merger she was pushing was the group's single biggest strategic project, and confidentiality had been locked down tight. That night after working late, she had told her husband Leo she would be swamped and not to wait up. Leo hadn't pressed, he'd simply nodded. A few evenings later she stepped out of a hotel after an off-site dinner with the senior team. A light rain was falling. She raised a hand to shield her eyes and flagged the valet. Suddenly someone appeared under an umbrella in front of her. Not Leo. Grant. He spoke as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Traffic's brutal out here. Let me drive you home. We still have a meeting, can't have you late. This time Serena didn't refuse. But the instant she moved to climb into the car, a silhouette peeled away from the edge of the night. Black coat, rain-dark hair, no umbrella in hand. It was Leo. Not a chance encounter, he had been waiting. Serena turned to Grant, apology in her eyes. "Langston, I won't trouble you." Grant stiffened. She walked under her own umbrella toward Leo. Softly she asked, "How long have you been waiting?" Leo smiled. "Just got here, perfect timing." Serena's face lit up with quiet happiness. Shoulder to shoulder under the umbrella, their world suddenly felt small and warm. "Let's go home." She dipped her head, glancing sideways at him. Something felt off, though she couldn't name it. Back home she showered, then headed out again to finish work. At the office she realized she'd left a critical file behind and rushed back. Afraid of waking her husband, she moved like a shadow. In the living room she found a file on the coffee table. Leo was already asleep. She opened it, and froze. Inside was the group's internal org chart, along with several classified briefs. Mercifully, none were the most sensitive secrets. In that instant she understood. Her husband hadn't drifted into her life on feeling alone, he'd come with an agenda. Yet she gave no sign, pretending nothing had changed. The merger entered its most critical phase. Suddenly the wind shifted. The chairman's office ordered a full audit of cash flows, tech licensing, and compliance. Executives darted for cover, praying the next arrow wouldn't bear their name. Serena recognized the calm for what it was, the hush before the storm. That night she left headquarters after another marathon meeting. It was nearly 3 a.m. The living room was dark. Assuming Leo was asleep, she flicked on the light, and found him on the couch. Her heart lurched. Why aren't you sleeping?" Leo lifted his gaze to her, steady and somber. "Serena, we need to talk." She said nothing. She had always known this moment would arrive. She sat, hands resting lightly on her thighs. Leo's voice was low but unmistakably clear. "You saw the file I left on the table that night." A tremor ran through her, she deflected. "Why did you approach me in the first place?" Leo looked at her, eyes calm yet laced with pain. "Because they sent me to." He had confessed. Yet her heart didn't shatter. Some part of her had already guessed. Serena asked, "What was the assignment?" Leo's fingers curled until his knuckles blanched. "Gain root access to the strategic system, get the cross-border supply chain data." Serena was almost eerily serene. "Did you take it?" "I didn't," he answered slowly, every word forged in steel. "Because I love you." Caught between loyalty and betrayal, he had chosen love. Human beings are strange, they know the right move yet sometimes find themselves powerless to make it. Leo had been planted by the rival firm, an inside man whose mission was all but complete. To reach her he had spent 5 years in deep cover, and he had obtained what he came for. But he had fallen for Serena, fallen hard. He refused to hurt her, so the core files were never stolen. Serena closed her eyes, but no tears fell, only her lashes trembled. She asked, "When did you fall in love with me?" Leo answered in a low voice, "From the very first time I saw you, I could tell you were different." Serena's frame shuddered. For the first time she lost her composure. "Really?" Leo nodded emphatically. Because the assignment had failed, Leo had no choice but to lie low outside the city for a while. The day he left, Serena pretended nothing had changed. She still went to work, made decisions, attended executive meetings. Only when she came home the living room was always empty. The couch no longer held that figure who used to sprawl against the cushions watching sports, and the kitchen never again rang with the light, quick rhythm of fruit being sliced. For a while she couldn't get used to it. Her longing for Leo, for reasons she couldn't name, grew sharper every day. She still laid out 2 place settings every morning, but one of them was always quietly scraped into the trash once the coffee cooled. At night, exhausted from work, she would sit on the sofa with her eyes shut and hear his old question in her ears, "Serena, why won't you let me come a little closer?" Meanwhile, to stay ahead of his handler's trackers, Leo lived through days that felt like years. He once hauled crates at the dockyard until the skin on his shoulders split, never letting out a single complaint. A matchmaker noticed his strong build and handsome face and tried to line up dates. Leo only smiled and declined. The matchmaker decided he was wasting his life and muttered that it was a shame to start drifting so young. 3 years of drifting turned him into someone else, bearded, gaunt, even a little stooped, looking every inch a day laborer. When Serena's project closed, the higher-ups no longer needed a scapegoat, and Leo slipped off the hook. The night he came back, she worked until 3 a.m., the rain outside never let up. Maya, her assistant, fretted, "Vance, it's so late, please go home." She nodded, stacked her papers, and switched off the office lights. The moment she stepped outside she froze. In the plaza, framed by falling rain, stood a figure both familiar and strange. He carried no umbrella. He simply stood there, as if he had been standing for hours. Rain slid from his hair, soaked his shoulders, pooled beside his shoes. When he lifted his head, the light caught his face. It was Leo. No longer the fresh, bright boy she remembered. He was quiet, tempered, his eyes carried weather and scars. Serena said nothing. She walked over. She tilted her umbrella toward him, slicing the curtain of rain in half. The drops pelted her own coat, but she didn't care. Leo looked at her, voice rough, "Serena, I'm back." She studied him, slow, deliberate, taking in his brow, his eyes, the rain-soaked collar, the fresh scar crossing the back of his hand. Softly, each word weighted, she said, "You're thinner." Leo was silent, his breath trembled. He asked in a low voice, "Do you blame me?" Serena gave a faint shake of her head. "If you hadn't left then, you'd be dead." She raised her hand and brushed his cheek. Her fingertips were gentle, as though testing that he was real, not a dream. She said, "Coming home is enough." No reproach, no bitterness, only deep, steady love. Leo couldn't hold back any longer, he drew her gently into his arms. "Serena, I swear, I'm not going anywhere again. I came back, to build a life with you." Serena closed her eyes and returned the embrace, her voice calm and warm, "Then let's go home."